A few weeks ago, I went into the Appalachian Mountains to gather stories for my next book. I found an old guest house that felt frozen in time. It was surrounded by thick woods. At first, I thought it would be perfect, just me and my writing. The first night was quiet. I settled in and made notes on local legends. But then, I heard something strange. Children's laughter rang out from the trees. I thought there might be a nearby festival. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. It was dark. Too dark. I felt a chill run through me. I walked toward the laughter, but it faded quickly. My heart started racing. I stood still in silence, looking around. All I heard was the wind. The laughter didn't return that night. As days passed, things got weird. I noticed shadows moving past my windows. I would look, but nothing was there. At first, I blamed it on being tired. Maybe I was losing my mind. Some nights, rustling noises outside would make me jump. I kept telling myself it was just animals. Then I saw something unsettling. There were pieces of old furniture piled in the woods. It felt wrong, like something wasn't right. The locals warned me about the things that shouldn't be disturbed. I felt my stomach tighten. I started believing I was being watched. Once I thought I saw something flicker between the trees. I asked a man at the diner about the place I was staying. He looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Leave well enough alone." His tone sent chills down my spine. I felt my pulse quicken at his words. Every night I returned to the guest house with a knot in my stomach. I wanted to believe my mind was just playing tricks on me. Then one evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a faint tapping. It was soft but kept going. I felt sweat on my brow. The tapping got louder, like fingers against the window frame. I turned to look. Nothing. I took a deep breath and tried to think it was just a tree branch, but deep down I felt frozen, unable to move. Finally, I pulled aside the curtain, and there he was, a silhouette just outside my window. My heart dropped. I wanted to scream, but my voice didn't come. I blinked, and he vanished. I stumbled back. Was that real? Had I just seen a figure standing there? I spent the rest of that night wide awake. Each sound felt amplified. The shadows moved more, and the rustling outside never stopped. I felt a terrible weight on my chest. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't bring myself to. The next day I tried to shake it off. But when night fell again, that tapping returned. I was terrified. Something wasn't right, and I didn't know what to do. Then I heard a voice, soft and shaky. It asked, "Why are you with her?" I turned around and there was nobody there. My breath caught in my throat as fear consumed me. I never went back to that guest house. I still think about that night. What was that thing? What did it want? I left the guest house the next day, my heart racing as I drove down the narrow, winding roads. I couldn't shake the images from the night before. The voice, the figure, it all replayed in my mind, haunting me like a relentless echo. I felt a mix of relief and dread with each mile I put between me and that place. Back in town, I tried to distract myself. I visited the diner again, hoping to find some normalcy. But as soon as I walked in, the locals fell silent. I felt eyes on me, judging, whispering. I took a seat at the counter, and the waitress hesitated before approaching. She seemed wary, as if she was deciding whether to serve me or turn me away. "Coffee?" she asked, barely making eye contact. "Yes, please," I replied, my voice cracking slightly. I glanced around, catching snippets of whispered conversations. The man who had warned me about the guest house was there, seated in a booth with his friends. He turned slightly, and for a second our eyes locked. I felt a chill run down my spine. After a few moments, someone broke the tense silence. "You should have listened, you know," a woman piped up from the back. "He doesn't come for just anyone." "What do you mean?" I asked, unable to help myself. The diner erupted with nervous laughter. The waitress served my coffee, almost slamming it down. "Just best to forget," she said quietly, before darting back to the kitchen. Frustrated and feeling restless, I stepped outside. The sun beat down, but I felt cold. Maybe I should just go home, forget this whole trip. But I had signed up for an experience, to gather stories. I couldn't turn back now. I found myself wandering the streets, the town enveloping me like a thick fog. Then I noticed an antique shop tucked away between two larger buildings. The sign read, "Curiosities and Oddities." I felt a pull to go in, despite the air of eeriness surrounding it. Inside, the shop was cramped and cluttered. Old clocks ticked in unison, their sound echoing off the walls. Shelves were lined with dusty trinkets, and I felt a sense of foreboding sweep over me. Then I noticed a painting hanging crookedly on the wall. It depicted a figure standing in the woods, cloaked in shadows. A chill ran through me as I recognized the outline. The shopkeeper appeared, an old man with deep-set eyes. "Ah, I see you found my favorite piece," he said, his voice low. "That one has a history, you know. They say he still walks these woods." I rubbed the back of my neck, suddenly feeling uneasy. "What do you mean? What history?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Not everyone gets to see him. They say he's a guardian, or perhaps a warning. It depends on your intentions." I backed away slightly, suddenly flooded with doubt. "What do you mean by intentions?" Before he could answer, I heard a faint whisper behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing there. My heart raced, and I felt the walls closing in. I stumbled out of the shop, the door swinging shut behind me. I needed answers, but this town felt like a trap. And as I stepped back outside, shadows danced in my periphery. That figure, the voice, it all felt too close. Maybe I wasn't free just yet. Then everything went dark. The darkness enveloped me like a heavy blanket. I blinked my eyes, hoping it was just a momentary blur. But then I realized I wasn't standing outside the antique shop anymore. I was in a forest, and the air was thick with an eerie silence. I looked around, heart pounding. The tall trees loomed above me, their dead branches stretching out like fingers. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This had to be some sort of trick of my mind. Maybe I fainted. I felt shaky, but forced myself to move forward. As I stepped carefully over a gnarled root, I heard it, the whisper. It was softer this time, but it felt closer. I turned in circles, trying to find its source. Panic bubbled in my chest. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Of course there was no response, just the rustling leaves. Then I noticed something ahead, a flicker of light cutting through the shadows. My curiosity got the better of me, and with hesitant steps I moved toward it. The light grew larger and brighter, illuminating a clearing. In the center stood a stone altar, worn down by time. Old markings covered its surface, swirling patterns that looked like a language I didn't understand. I approached cautiously, feeling an electric charge in the air. Then I spotted something that made my heart stop. A small, rusted item lay atop the altar, an old key. It was strange and oddly alluring. I felt drawn to it, but a voice in my head screamed to stay away. I fought the urge to reach out, my instincts battling my curiosity. As I stood there, I heard the whisper again. This time it was clearer, a soft lament that echoed through the trees. "Leave this place." I froze. The voice matched the figure I had encountered, the one I thought I had escaped. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice shaky. "What do you want from me?" The air thickened. The wind picked up, and leaves danced wildly around me, as if urging me to flee. My pulse raced. I had to get out of there. Get out. Just then, I saw movement at the edge of the clearing. A shadowy figure slipped between the trees, barely visible. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't want to stay and find out who or what it was. I turned to leave, But as I did, my foot caught on something and I stumbled. I glanced back one final time to see the figure moving closer, its shape indistinct yet somehow familiar. Then, without thinking, I dashed away from the altar, weaving through the trees. Branches whipped at my arms as I ran, urgency flooding every step. I thought I heard the voice again, soft, insistent, but I couldn't risk stopping to listen. I had to put distance between myself and whatever was pursuing me. Finally, I broke free from the trees and found myself at the edge of town, gasping for breath. I turned back, expecting to see something chasing me, but there was nothing. Just the quiet woods, still and ominous. I felt a weight settle in my stomach. I had entered a different world, and the events of that night were far from over. I needed to understand what I had stumbled into, and more than that, I needed to understand that figure in the woods. Then, in the quiet of the moment, something in my pocket tugged against my side. My hands trembled as I reached for it. The old key had somehow found its way back to me. My heart sank. What had I gotten myself into? As the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood at the edge of town, the last traces of daylight fading away. I felt the cool breath of night on my skin, sending a shiver down my spine. The key in my pocket was heavy with unsaid promises and riddled with uncertainty. I had no idea what it was for, but I knew it meant something important. I started walking back toward the antique shop, my heart racing with each passing moment. The events from earlier nagged at me. That figure in the woods haunted my thoughts. What did it want? And why did I feel a strange connection to it? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to uncover something that had been hidden for a long time. As I reached the shop, the door creaked open as if inviting me in. I stepped inside, my mind racing. Dust motes floated in the fading light, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. The shop was quiet, but I felt a presence, something lurking just beyond my vision. I glanced around, hoping to find a clue, anything that could explain what had happened. My eyes landed on a trunk in the corner, partially hidden behind a stack of old books. The ornate carvings on its surface looked oddly familiar. I approached it, drawn in by an invisible thread, and paused. The key weighed heavily in my pocket, almost pulsing with energy, urging me to act. With shaking hands, I reached for the lock. It seemed to fit perfectly, and with a soft click, the trunk sprung open. Inside, I discovered a collection of letters, faded and yellowed with age. As I lifted one out, a rush of cold air swept through the room, making me shiver. Each letter bore the same troubling theme, warning after warning about a malevolent force hidden in the woods. The last letter in the stack caught my eye. It was dated just a few years before I was born. "The darkness calls," it read. "Do not seek the key. Do not enter the altar." My stomach dropped. This was a warning directed at me, and the eerie coincidences began piling up. Was I destined to repeat a mistake made long ago? Suddenly, I heard a soft thud from the back of the shop. My heart raced as I spun around, scanning the dimly lit corners. The wooden floor creaked underfoot, and I took a hesitant step back toward the door. That's when I noticed something glinting in the half-light. A few feet away, a silver locket lay on the floor. I approached cautiously, the feeling of being watched creeping back over me. I picked up the locket and opened it to reveal a picture of a woman. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. A chill crawled up my spine as I realized she resembled the figure that had appeared in the woods. Could this locket belong to her? I felt a connection, a pull, tugging at the fabric of my reality. Then, I heard it again. A hushed whisper, almost like a plea. "Help me." The voice sent panic coursing through my veins. I was no longer at the edge of the unknown. I was being pulled deeper into it. Before I could process what was happening, a shadow darted past the display window. My breath caught in my throat. Someone, or something, was watching me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone in the shop. With the locket in one hand and the key in the other, I took a shaky breath. I needed answers, and they felt close, just out of reach. I felt a surge of urgency. I had to confront whatever was lurking in the woods and unveil the truth. But what awaited me was still a mystery, one that might just unravel everything I thought I knew. The next morning, I woke up with the locket clutched tightly in my hand. Memories of last night's discoveries flooded back, but I also felt a new weight on my chest. I needed to figure out what this meant. That voice whispering help me clung to my thoughts like a relentless fog. I grabbed my jacket and headed outside, the sun casting pale shadows on the ground. Would I find clarity in the woods? The chill in the air promised an uncomfortable confrontation, but I felt compelled to go. After everything that had happened, I couldn't turn back now. I made my way toward the edge of town, the path leading into the dense trees. As I stepped onto the trail, memories of the figure flickered in my mind. Fear danced in my stomach, but a sense of purpose pushed me forward. I needed answers. The woods were eerily quiet. Birdsong was absent, replaced by the rustling of leaves, a whisper of secrets hidden deep within. I clutched the locket and the key in my pockets. Would they give me the courage I needed? After a few minutes of walking, I stumbled upon a clearing that felt oddly sacred. Sunlight streamed down, illuminating a cluster of stones laid out in a circle. My heart raced. This had to be the altar mentioned in that letter. I had to get closer. As I stood at the edge of the circle, I scanned the area. The shadows seemed to stretch and shift, almost as if something was lurking just beyond my sight. That sense of being watched returned, stronger than ever. I felt it now, a cold embrace wrapping around me. This is where it happened, I whispered, fearing I was about to step into something I wasn't ready for. This is where the darkness calls. I took a deep breath. Memories from the letters flooded my mind. Do not seek the key. Do not enter the altar. But I couldn't back down now. I was here, and I had to understand what was happening. As I stepped into the circle, the air thickened. Suddenly, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. The shadows began to swirl, and I staggered back. Then I saw them, figures emerging from the trees, shrouded in darkness. Hope and horror tangled within me as I recognized the familiar silhouette of the woman from the locket. Her eyes locked onto mine, pleading and full of urgency. "Help me," she whispered again. But this time it echoed in the clearing like a call from the abyss. The other shadows shifted closer. My instinct screamed at me to run. I turned, but the woods no longer felt like the path of escape. They were a maze, twisted and tangled with no way out. Fear consumed me as I darted back toward the edge of the clearing. That's when everything went dark. The world around me vanished into an all-encompassing void. I stumbled, arms flailing through the darkness, trying to grasp reality. Then a hand grabbed my wrist and yanked me back, pulling me into the light. I gasped, my heart pounding louder than ever. I blinked against the brightness and found myself face to face with the woman, the figure I had seen in the woods. Now, standing before me, she seemed more solid than a whisper, but her expression remained desperate. "I need you to trust me," she said. Each word pierced through the fear clouding my mind, urging me to listen. But trust in the unknown felt like a leap off a cliff. "Will you help me?" she asked again, the urgency clear in her eyes. I knew I stood at a crossroads. The truth lingered on the verge of revelation, but so did the shadows of danger. Could I truly help her? I hesitated, but I could sense the truth dawning just outside my reach, and I was running out of time. I stared at her, my breath hitching in my throat. "What do you need?" My voice sounded small in the vastness of the clearing. "Listen closely," she said, urgency threading through her tone. The key you hold is part of a bond that was broken, a connection between worlds. There are things trapped here, things that hunger for freedom. I felt the locket pulse in my pocket, an eerie reminder of everything I had uncovered. But why me? How can I help? Her eyes dimmed for a moment, and I could see the weight of her suffering. You're the only one who can feel what they feel. They've been waiting for someone to hear them, to find the altar. I felt a chill run through me. You mean there are others like you? Yes, she breathed. They didn't all make it. The darkness consumes them, drawing their essence into this world of shadows. If you don't act quickly, it will take me too. Panic flooded my veins. I couldn't let that happen. What do I need to do? Open the locket. Her words hung in the air, thick with dread. Inside you'll find a symbol. It's the key to releasing them, but you must be careful. The shadows won't let you go easy. I pulled the locket from my pocket, hands shaking. As I opened it, a soft glow emanated from within, illuminating the symbols engraved inside. I recognized one, a circle surrounded by 3 lines. My heart raced as I turned to look at her. What does it mean? It's a protection symbol. It'll shield you from the shadows while you gather the others. Gather the others? My mind spun. How many are there? Too many, she whispered. You must be swift. If they catch your scent, they will drag you down into the void. I can help you, but you must do exactly as I say. Before I could respond, I heard a low growl echoing through the trees. The shadows shifted restlessly at the edge of the clearing. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen, both terrified and enthralled by the situation unfolding. Now, she urged, snapping me back to reality. We don't have time. Let's begin. I nodded, adrenaline flooding my system as she gestured toward the thick trees. We moved deeper into the woods, the air thickening once again as the shadows drew closer, drawn to the glowing locket. The forest felt alive, branches clawing at me like fingers. I shivered and turned to the woman beside me. What if I can't do this? What if I fail? She paused, locking her gaze onto mine. You have to believe in yourself. They are tethered to this world by fear. If you can confront them, you will have the power to set them free. I couldn't shake the feeling that escape was slipping away faster than I could hold on. As we navigated through the darkness, I dared a glance back at the clearing, now dimmed by encroaching shadows. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement darting towards us from behind the trees. I blinked, heart hammering. We're not alone. Before I could take another breath, a figure lunged from the darkness. I couldn't make out details, but its shape sent a rush of panic racing through me. The woman beside me shrieked, "Run! They've found us!" I dashed forward, the clearing now behind us, retreating into the unknown. I pushed through branches and underbrush, summoned by urgency, but the shadows followed, hungry for the light. As I sprinted deeper into the woods, I realized I had to find the rest. The weight of the locket reminded me of the task ahead, but with shadows clawing at my heels, I wasn't sure I could finish what I started. Then I stumbled upon something. An old, crumbling stone structure half hidden by vines. It beckoned me, a remnant of what had once been. I paused, panting, as the echoes of the woman's plea dashed around my mind. "Are you ready?" I whispered to myself, knowing this was only the beginning. What lay ahead was uncertain, but the truth and the shadows were waiting to be faced. I stood in front of the crumbling stone structure, my heart still racing from the chase. The shadows just behind me felt like a heavy fog, wrapping around my legs, threatening to pull me down. Somehow, this building felt like more than just stone. It felt like a gate to something deeper. "Quick, inside," the woman said, urgency punctuating her tone. I hesitated for a split second, glancing over my shoulder. The shadows writhed at the edges of the clearing, but I could see them creeping closer. I pushed past the tangled vines and stepped into the dim interior. The air was cooler inside, a stark contrast to the heavy heat outside. My eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the cracks in the stone walls. The interior was scattered with remnants of forgotten times, broken pottery and faded paintings showing long-lost faces. The atmosphere buzzed with a strange energy, almost crackling. "This place," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What is it?" "It's the altar," she replied, stepping closer to a decaying pedestal in the center of the room. "It's where the bond was forged, and where it can be reforged, but we have to act quickly." I edged closer, studying the symbols etched into the stone. From what I could see, they mirrored the ones from the locket. My heart raced again, and a realization struck me. "This is where I gather them, isn't it? The others?" "Yes," she said, "but you'll have to confront each of their fears. Only then will they be able to break free." Confront fears? My stomach twisted. What if I can't? What if I get trapped here too? She paused, her expression grave. "You must take the strength from your belief in them. They have been waiting for someone to reach out. You can't let fear control you." Suddenly the shadows outside surged, and I heard a howl, a piercing cry that echoed through the stones. My blood ran cold. They were relentless. "Listen," she said, urgency flaring in her eyes. "This is our chance. The shadows will hide themselves, but we need to call out to the ones trapped behind them." "Use the symbol from the locket." With trembling hands, I held the locket up. Its soft glow began to pulse, bathing the altar in light. I felt a strange warmth spreading through me as I remembered her words. I focused on the circle and lines, willing the light to draw others to us. "Come forth if you hear me. We want to help." For a moment, nothing happened. The shadows continued to swirl outside, almost mocking my efforts. But then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. The light from the locket had sparked something in the air. I gasped as shapes began to emerge from the shadows, translucent figures rising like mist. They looked confused, ethereal faces filled with longing and fear. "Please," I urged, my voice gaining strength. "Trust me. You can be free." And just as hope began to swell in my chest, a deafening crash echoed from behind me, sending a wave of terror through me. The entrance quaked as a massive shadow surged through the threshold, a dark figure looming larger than anything I'd faced before. "We need to hurry," I shouted, fear solidifying my resolve. The shadows closed in from all sides. The figures I had summoned wavered, struggling against the darkness. I could feel everything slipping away. I had to act fast, or we would all be lost. "Hold on," I yelled, grasping the locket tighter. But just as I began to realize the full weight of my responsibility, everything went dark. I could only hope it wasn't too late, and that somewhere deep within me was the courage to confront what was coming. It was pitch black, the kind of darkness that presses in on you, drowning out even the tiniest flicker of light. I felt the cold stone beneath my hands as I steadied myself against the altar. Panic surged, and my heart raced, but I forced myself to focus. I couldn't let fear consume me, not now. I took a deep breath. "I'm not leaving you," I whispered, addressing the shimmering figures around me. I could feel their longing, their hope. I had to guide them. Then, just as suddenly, a glimmer appeared. The locket nestled in my palm flickered back to life. Intense warmth spread through me, illuminating the darkness. I held it high. "Come back. I'm here." The shadows paused, hesitating like a predator sensing weakness. I felt their presence lingering, pressing against the edges of reality. They waited, testing whether I would falter. Drawing on a sudden burst of confidence, I spoke louder. "You trapped souls, you can break free. Don't let the shadows win." The light from the locket pulsed rhythmically, helping the specters coalesce around me, urging them forward. One figure stepped closer. It was a woman, her face marred with sorrow. "But I can't remember who I was," she said, her voice trembling like a whisper caught in the wind. "What if my fear holds me back?" I stretched my hand toward her, desperately wanting to reassure her. "You're not alone. Remember what made you strong. We'll do this together." To my surprise, the shadows stirred, as if annoyed by my words. A loud crack echoed through the stone walls, and my heart sank as I realized they didn't want us to succeed. I felt the temperature drop, the air thickening with dread. "Stay close," I shouted, my voice breaking through the cackling shadows. But as I scanned the area, another figure emerged, a man, his eyes wide with fear. "I'm not brave enough. What if they come for me?" he stammered. His uncertainty sent chills through me. "We can't let fear decide our fate," I replied, hoping my words would sink in. "We've made it this far. Let's break this bond together." Just then, the shadows lunged, their tendrils swirling with dark fury. I gripped the locket tighter, pushing its energy around us like a shield. "You can do it," I called out again. "Think of your loved ones. Think of the joy you felt before." The woman closed her eyes, and for a brief moment I saw a flicker of determination. The man followed suit, his stance shifting from fear to resolve. And as they found their focus, the shadows shrieked, writhing in backlash. But before I could celebrate this small victory, the engulfing darkness surged again. I looked at the figures around me, willing them to fight alongside me. Everything hung in the balance. "Now, together," I commanded, raising the locket high as the silhouettes began to lift. But even as the light expanded, a new threat rushed at us, a deeper darkness that pulsed with malicious intent. My throat went dry. That's when I saw it. A creature more fearsome than anything I could have imagined, a shape that seemed to absorb all light instead of reflecting it. "What have you done?" Its voice boomed inside my head, sending ripples of dread through me. Suddenly, I understood. It wasn't just a battle for these lost souls, it was a fight for my own. The creature loomed over us, a wall of darkness that seemed to swallow the light. I stumbled back, clutching the locket tighter, my heart hammering louder than before. "What do you want?" I managed to barely whisper. "Your resolve is commendable," it taunted, its voice echoing in my mind like a haunting melody. "But you cannot save them, nor yourself. They belong to me." The air thickened, as if the weight of its words was taking form around us. I felt a chill creep down my spine. In a flash, the locket dimmed, a warning. Panic flared inside me. I couldn't lose this small flicker of hope. "You're wrong," I shouted, mustering every ounce of defiance I could muster. "I will save them." The woman stepped beside me, her spirit rekindled. "No one should be lost forever," she said, her voice firmer now. "We are not what you claim." The creature let out a roar that rattled my bones, an unfathomable anger permeating the room. It lunged forward, dark tendrils snapping at the air. I cried out, instinctively moving to shield the others. "Stay behind me!" The shadows clawed at us. I raised the locket high, praying it would protect us. Suddenly, its warmth spread through me, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The light beat like a heart, a stubborn pulse in the overwhelming night. "Focus!" I yelled. "Remember why you're fighting!" I could see their faces, the flickering hope in their eyes. "Fight for your memories, your lives!" Each figure seemed to draw strength from my words. The female specter grasped the man's hand, breathing life back into his confidence. "We are more than our fears," she said, and with that, a light began to rise from them, fierce and radiant. The creature screeched, recoiling as if burned by our unity. "You think you can defy me?" It hissed, fangs glimmering like knives. The shadows thickened around it, preparing for another assault. "We can confront the darkness together," I shouted, and a surge of power flowed from the locket. Together we chanted words of strength, images of their past flickering like shades in the air, smiles, laughter, the warmth of family. At that moment, an unbelievable strength surged through me, intertwining with the energies of the lost souls. It was as if we formed a barrier against the creature's imminent attack. The ghastly figure faltered, confusion flashing across its face. Then everything erupted. Light exploded around us, forcing the shadows to retreat. I kept my gaze on the creature, not allowing fear to creep back in. "We won't let you take them." But as the brilliance encased us, the ground rumbled beneath my feet. I could sense the creature melting away into the darkness, but its voice lingered, promising that this was not the end. "You may have won this battle, but I am closer than you think." Suddenly, there was a bright flash, and the world around us shifted. My grip on the locket faltered, and I felt a pull, as if I was being yanked from one reality to another. Before I could comprehend what was happening, the colors faded, leaving nothing but shadows behind. I gasped as I landed on the cool ground, blinking against the sudden brightness. I was outside, the familiar edge of the woods looming before me, but it felt like stepping onto the precipice of another dimension. The air was thick with tension, and the shadows I had just battled still echoed in my mind. I scrambled to my feet, the locket still clenched tightly in my hand. I was alive. I wasn't just a part of those lost souls anymore. A wave of exhaustion washed over me as reality settled in. The victory, however fleeting, surged through me, propelling me forward. But the silence in the woods was unnerving. I turned apprehensively back toward the village, unsure of what I would find. I hesitated, knowing that part of me still wanted to stay, to learn more, to search for those figures I had nearly freed. I shook my head, chasing away the remnants of doubt. It was time to leave. I had to return to a place where shadows didn't haunt my every step. As I jogged down the narrow path leading away from the trees, I felt a strange tug at my heart, a connection to those I had left behind. There was a piece of me still bound to the spectral figures, but I also carried with me their strength and hope. I needed to drive onward, seeking solace away from the woods. Once more at the diner, I caught the locals' eyes, their fear shimmering behind a fragile veneer of curiosity. The same man who had warned me about the guest house sat in the corner booth, shadows against his weary frame. He glanced up at me, his gaze searching but unreadable, the weight of experience concealed under his stoic facade. "Thought you left town," he said slowly, the words heavy with something unsaid. "I did, and then I came back," I replied, curiosity sparking an unlikely connection. "But I found something more than I bargained for." He studied me for a heartbeat, as if weighing the truths in my voice against myths born of fear. "I've seen others like you. They either return or disappear completely. What did you find?" I paused, the mystery of it all spiraling in my mind. "Something I can't fully explain. I think it's best left unsaid." He nodded, seemingly understanding yet wary. "So, you're one of the lucky ones then?" His eyes shifted, scanning the edges of the diner as if shadows lurked within every corner. "But be careful. Those shadows don't forget." As I took a seat and tried to steady my racing heart, I looked down at the locket resting on my palm. With that act of defiance, I had blended fear with hope, and though the specters seemed to retreat, I couldn't silence the whispers that danced on the edge of my thoughts. I knew then that what happened in the woods would never fully sever its ties to me. The man's gaze burned an imprint into my memory, the realization washing over me that I may never completely escape my experience. Would I return to the mountains one day? Would I seek out those lost souls again? I took a deep breath, but the questions lingered like ghosts in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was still there, waiting, watching. As I settled into my chair, a chill crept through the quiet diner, an echo of what I had confronted only hours ago. Maybe some secrets were never meant to be uncovered. Or perhaps they just lay dormant, biding their time until someone was brave, foolish enough to seek them out. I looked up from the locket and faced the windows, where shadows shifted restlessly in the creeping dusk. And so I sat, unsure if my journey had ended or simply begun anew, the weight of uncertainties settling in my bones. I moved my eyes away from the mountains, but somewhere deep down I felt like I was still on the verge of something, and I wouldn't be able to rest until I learned what that something was.